Do you want to be someone who's charismatic, someone who keeps people's attention, someone who's engaging every single time they speak? Let me answer that right now. Let me tell you what not to do and exactly how to fix it. Because if you've been trapped in a boring conversation where someone was talking at you, you know how that conversation goes. It just goes in circles. You really want to get out of it, but you don't want to be rude. I'm sorry you had to endure that. Today, I've got you. That is not going to be you. You've subscribed, you're listening, you're in this community, which means you're not going to be the person, the boring person, at the next networking event, the next meeting, or the next dinner table. In this video, I'm walking you through 10 research-backed behaviors that make a person boring to talk to straight out of a real study from the University of Essex, and the science behind why each one kills your charisma and exactly what to do instead. So stick around because number 10 is not the one that you expect. Let's go public. Hi, I'm Natasha, public speaking and communication coach, and I help professionals to speak with a kind of clarity and confidence that makes people actually lean in. Here's the truth. You can be brilliant in private, but if you're boring in the room, no one will ever find out. Someone with half the insight and twice the charisma will get remembered instead. That's what this channel is about. How to be brave, bold, and brilliant. If that's the kind of speaker, leader, and communicator you're working on, hit subscribe right now. The future you, the one who's actually remembered for the right reasons, will thank you. I've been on the receiving end of boring conversations more than I can count. Stuck, nodding, trying to find a way out that didn't seem rude. And for the longest time, I didn't know how to do it gracefully. Now I do. And I actually walk you through exactly how in my book, Extrovert Me, An Introvert's Guide to Confident Networking. There's a whole section on how to exit a draining conversation without making the other person feel brushed off. Introverts or extroverts, grab it. The link is in the description. Okay, let's get into the 10. Here's where this list comes from because I want you to know this is not just my opinion. Psychologists at the University of Essex surveyed people on what consistently makes someone seem boring and published a list of traits that came up again and again. This is data. Here's the thing underneath all of it. Every boring behavior on this list is something your brain defaults to when you're tired, nervous, or running on autopilot. Because the flat, boring version of you takes less energy than the present charismatic one. That is the whole mechanism, which means every single one of these is learnable and unlearnable. Let's get into them. What makes one boring and what flips it into charisma? Behavior number 1 is banality. It's not a word we hear every day, and here's what it means. Banality means sticking to the surface, the same topic every time, the same story, the same joke, the coworker who tells the exact same vacation story every time vacation comes up. By the second time, you're nodding. By the third time, you're planning dinner in your head. Here's why this kills charisma. Your brain is neurologically wired to crave novelty. Novel information activates the dopamine reward system, the same circuitry involved in anticipation and pleasure. A familiar story gives the other person's brain nothing new to chase, so their attention drifts without even meaning for it to happen. That's the boring version of you showing up even when you have something to say. The charismatic flip is bring something new into the conversation. A fact you read, a question you haven't asked before, a fresh angle on something familiar. This works for the same reason the boring version fails. Novelty is what keeps the brain engaged. And the easiest way to stay stocked up on fresh, exciting ideas is to live interestingly and curious. Read something new, try a different restaurant, a new experience, a new hobby. When you live life interestingly and curious, the conversations become interesting. If you're not taking anything new in, you have nothing new to bring. And that's how charisma quietly drains out a person. Behavior number two, passivity. Passivity means having no opinion of your own, agreeing with everything someone says. Yeah, me too, exactly. Well, it may feel polite, but it's actually boring because the conversation has nowhere to go. Here's why this blocks charisma. Charisma lives in energy exchange. If you have no perspective, the other person has nothing to respond to, nothing to push against, and nothing to remember you by. The conversation has no shape, and shapeless conversations are forgotten. The minute they end, here's the charisma flip. Have an opinion and let it show. Now, you don't have to be combative. You need to be present enough to actually take a side. You don't need to tell someone that they're wrong to have a mind of their own. Now, some rooms call for restraint. Politics, religion, anything genuinely off limits for that setting, you're allowed to steer clear. But on the things that you do speak up on, have a reason behind it. Stay respectful and let your view actually show. That's where the conversation gets interesting. Behavior number three, self-preoccupation. Have you met someone where every single story circles back to them? Every single example is their life, their week, their problem. You ask a question and somehow the answer ends up being about them again. Here's why this is a charisma killer. Research at Harvard found that talking about yourself activates the same brain reward circuitry as food or money. We are literally wired to enjoy it. The problem is the reward is completely one sided. The other person isn't getting it, they're just watching you get it. And that's exactly when boring sets in for them. I've sat across someone like this where every time I met her, all she spoke about was herself, her business, her life, her travels, her everything. And I was genuinely happy for her, but I found myself quietly avoiding her. I know, I'm not proud of it, but it's true. Here's the charismatic flip. Ask a question about the other person that feels natural. Give the other person their own hit of that same reward. The pleasure of being asked, of being heard, of mattering in the conversation. Take the spotlight off yourself and put it on them. Make them feel like the star of the conversation. That is what makes someone walk away from you charmed, not the other way around. Behavior number four, tedious. Have you heard someone take 3 minutes to tell a 30-second story? The excessive pausing, the dragging the point so long that the listener loses the thread before it ever lands. Here's the science behind it, why this reads as boring. Your working memory, the mental space where you hold what someone is saying to you, has limited capacity. The longer the point takes to arrive, the more capacity gets used up just by following along, with nothing left to actually enjoy the story. The listener doesn't even know why they're checked out. Their brain just ran out of the room. Here's the charismatic flip. Get to the point, then let the story breathe. A clean, well paced story is always a winner. And here's something unconventional that actually works. If your energy is low going in, then your pacing will drag without you even knowing it. Before a networking event, put on your favorite playlist. Move, shake it off in the car, walk in already lit up instead of walking in tired, hoping that the room will carry you. Behavior number five, low effectivity, which is monotone, having no expression, no enthusiasm. This is the colleague whose good news and bad news sounds exactly the same. You genuinely cannot tell from their tone whether something is exciting or terrible. Here's why low effectivity blocks charisma. So much of emotional meaning is carried by tone and delivery, not the words themselves. When your tone doesn't move, your voice reads as flat, no matter how interesting the content actually is. This is one of the quiet ways a charismatic person and a boring person say the exact same sentence and it lands completely differently in the room. Here's the charismatic flip. Let your voice match your message. Let your energy show. If you're excited about something, then speak about it in an excited tone. If you're not happy about it, then speak about it in a not excited tone. When your voice matches what you're saying, you're actually signaling to the person listening how they should be taking that information in. So if you genuinely get excited about some good news, the other person is anticipating and getting excited with you. They're mirroring your tone. So keep the energy flowing by keeping your tone high. Behavior number 6 is complaining. Have you been around someone who's constantly negative? They share problem after problem, showing little interest in anyone else's experience. The friend who turns every catch up into a list of what's going wrong this week. Here's why this is a charisma draining behavior. Psychologists calls this negative bias. We register and we remember negative experiences far more strongly than positive ones, which means a person who constantly complains doesn't just bring the room down for a moment. They become what people remember about them. So over time, people stop asking, how are you doing? Not just because they don't care, but because they already know the answer and the answer doesn't change. So here's the charismatic flip. Name the problem. It is okay to talk about your problems with your friend, but move it to possibility, even a small possibility. This interrupts the negative loop before it sets in and gives the listener something to engage with instead of just absorbing it. Complaining drains a room faster than any other behavior. But when you talk about the possibility, it pulls people back in. A quick pause here. Which one of these 6 is the one you catch yourself doing? Drop it in the comments, or better yet, tell me about the most boring conversation you've ever been trapped in. I read every one of these comments and I'd love to hear your experience. And if you already know what communication behaviors are holding you back in a room that really matters, then I would invite you to my coaching program, Public Speaking Mastery. You get real coaching, real community, and real accountability. The link is in the description. Okay, 4 more behaviors. Let's finish this. Behavior number 7, boring ingratiation. This is trying too hard to be funny, impressive, or liked. Name dropping, over laughing, performing instead of connecting. Here's why this kills charisma. When someone senses you're working that hard to win them over, it reads as hidden motive rather than genuine warmth. People instinctively pull back from anything that feels like a pitch, even a social one. The try hard energy makes the room slightly uncomfortable instead of charmed, which is the exact opposite of what you're going for. Here's the charismatic flip. Be interested instead of trying to be interesting or impressive. Lead with genuine curiosity. When you're truly interested in someone, they feel it, and that feeling is what they remember. Impressing people is exhausting and forgettable, but being interested in them is effortless and it sticks. Behavior number 8 is distraction. If you sat across someone trying to have a conversation and their eyes were wandering, their phone was face up on the table. Perhaps their attention was split between you and whoever walked in the door. Here's a research on this one. A study out of the University of Essex found that the mere presence of a phone on the table, even when turned off, lowered the quality of connection and trust felt in the conversation. Divided attention reads as disinterest, even when you don't mean to. And boring, in this case, isn't about what you say. It's about how much of yourself you actually show up with. Here's the charismatic flip. Lock in for 10 minutes. Phone away, eyes on the person, fully present, like they're the only person in the room. Then, if you need to move on, you can. But for those 10 minutes, give them your full, undivided attention. And go one layer deeper. While you're there, ask them what they're proud of, what they're working on, and what they're nervous about. Focused attention is one of the most charismatic things one human being can give another. Behavior number 9 is seriousness. This is when someone rarely smiles, is overly stern, and there's never a moment of lightness or play. Researchers who study emotion have documented something called emotional contagion. We unconsciously mirror the facial expression and energy of whoever we're talking to. A stern face produces a stern, guarded response right back, whether either of you mean it or not. The boring version of this looks like a conversation that never quite warms up, where both people leave feeling vaguely drained without knowing why. Here's the charismatic flip. Let yourself be lighter than feels professional. Warmth on your face tends to produce warmth on theirs. A little levity doesn't make you less credible. It makes you more human. And human is what people actually connect with. You can be serious about your work and still be someone that people enjoy talking to. Those two things are not in conflict. Behavior number 10, poor social awareness. Here it is, the one that I told you to wait for. This is not about what you say, it's about what you miss. Poor social awareness means not reading the room, continuing to talk when the other person has already checked out. When you miss those signals that they're telling you, the short answers, the shifting postures, the eyes that are drifting away, that tells you that the conversation has run its course. Here's why this is the most surprising charisma killer on the entire list. We spend so much time obsessing over what to say, how to say it, what questions to ask, and we completely overlook the fact that charismatic people are not primarily the best talkers in the room. They are the best readers of the room. Research on charismatic leadership consistently shows that the ability to read and respond to others, to actually notice what's happening in real time and adjust, is one of the strongest predictors on whether people feel engaged, connected, and drawn to someone. And here's the twist. This skill has nothing to do with personality. Introverts are often naturally better at this than extroverts because they observe more than they perform. Here's the charismatic flip. While you're talking, watch. Not just the words coming out of your mouth, but what's coming back. So if their answers are getting shorter, if their body is pulling back, and if their eyes are drifting, that is information. Respond to it. Adjust, ask a question, create an opening, or gracefully bring the conversation to a close. The most charismatic person in the room aren't the ones who said the most interesting things. They are the ones who made every person they spoke to feel genuinely seen. So there you have it, 10 behaviors and 10 flips. Which one spoke the loudest to you? Work on that one this week and comment it below, because I want you to go public to be brave, bold, and brilliant.